You said not good, or?
No, I said I'm good.
Okay. It's Jackson County Commission meeting to order. Have our roll call.
District 1, Mr. Guffey.
Present.
District 2, Mr. Venable.
Present.
District 3, Mr. Miller.
Present.
And District 4, Mr. Label.
Present.
Quorum is present, so we can conduct business this evening. We'll have our invocation by Mr. Porter and our pledge by Mr. Venable. We have the minutes from the November 12th meeting before us. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Next item is approval of the agenda. We have 9 items on our agenda this evening. Any changes before we proceed? And do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion.
Motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay. We have no awards this evening. We have had several sign up for public comments, so we'll start there. First one to sign up is Mr. David Crawford.
I signed up to speak on the license tax, but I don't see it specifically mentioned on your agenda. Are you going to discuss it tonight?
We won't need this.
It was in your work session, and I was under the impression that you would be discussing it tonight.
No, it'll probably be another work session before we move forward or whatever decisions made on it.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to say.
Okay. That's fair. Mr. David McGriff.
I'll talk a little bit about the solid waste funding transfer. If I understand it right, the funding was set up to be replace trucks and for the service. My concern is if we start taking that money now, then we're simply adding a tax. 2 or 3 years. I think what the trucks last 5 years, they're pretty expensive. So my concern is if we start taking funds out of that for other purposes, we're going to run into trouble. It's also landfill. There's probably some cost in landfill down the road. So if we take the money from the solid waste now and use it, what are we going to do then? Raise the fees? It's pretty reasonable now. As a landowner, I'd hate to see that because we have a lot of it thrown out on the side of the road. And this is helped quite a bit. The parks, I don't know where the funding comes from. I don't know where how much money extra money is in the fund for the parks, but there's one section that they won't develop, and there's always cost in the park. I'm not too opposed to the $5 increase in tax if we need the money. Last question, I guess, is if we have a $900,000 shortfall this year, are we spending more money or have we got less income?
Primarily, more money is what's been spent over the past few years. In regard to the other two, the solid waste and the park, the intentions would not be to take anything from their operating budget. It would be anything over that operating budget. So, similar on the solid waste, we know that we're going to have to keep those trucks rotated, and that would be figured into the budget, the normal budget as things work. So we would try to consider all those things so that we would take away from, running it properly as it should be.
But if we're making a profit, we need to talk about reducing the fee. That's a service that pays for itself.
And looking back over the history of the GRIP, solid waste was funded a lot through the general fund when it was created. We were looking to try to recoup some of the funding that the general fund put out for that. Was our intent behind this. It was several hundreds of thousands of dollars that we put into that program. I say we, that was years ago. That was never recouped. Trying to get money back in here for other projects.
This increase is what, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, with the increase to buy the trucks to pick up the cans. So is that figured in at the break even, or?
I think at that time there were fewer people also paying. We've been more and more diligent about getting folks on board, and that's, of course, will continue to increase also.
Is the budget printed? Is there a printed budget?
Yes, we can get you a copy of the actual budget. Did I? Okay. Move on to we have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. And the first item is motion to approve change the meeting dates and times for the month of January. You have in your packets the dates that we need to be looking at for December and January. December 2nd meeting, request that we move that to 3 p.m. And I'd also like to ask that we have an 11 a.m. budget meeting on that day. So we'll have an 11 a.m. budget meeting and then a 3 p.m. work session. December 10th will be 5 p.m. We have a public hearing. That's moved from the 9th. December 30th will be 5 p.m. and that's changed from the 23rd. January 13th will be another 3 p.m. And I can get a copy of this, anybody that needs it. And then January 21st will be at 5 p.m. That was changed due to a holiday. So are there any questions on this before we proceed? Okay, so entertain a motion to approve the changes as listed on the sheet there.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item, motion to approve and sign a contract with the Atlanta Group for updating aerial mapping for the Mapping and Appraisal Department. This was brought to us last week from the Revenue Commissioner. Before any further discussion, entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion on this?
This was the budget line.
Correct. It was budgeted over 2 years. We actually did not proceed with it last year, but we would budget for next year also to cover the total cost of it. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Next item, motion to approve the quote to move forward with Campbell Remediation Services. This is for the asbestos removal in the annex building. I believe, again, if we do approve this tonight, we need to, it was mentioned to make sure that a guarantee was included, that all asbestos was removed. What was that it, Mr. Bennett? Was there anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll need to make sure that that's included upon a final draft from the Campbell Remediation. With any other comments on this before we proceed? Okay, do we have a motion to approve with this, with that change or that addition? Motion, we have a second. Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. We'll get with them and see if we can get this process started. Okay. Next item, motion to request assistance from the legislature in pursuing nonpartisan elections for the county. This, again, we discussed this at the previous work session. Before we proceed, are there any questions or comments or changes that are requested on this draft ordinance or draft resolution? For further discussion, we have a motion to approve this resolution.
Make a motion.
Motion, do we have a second? Second. Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Again, this does basically just spells out the request that they pursue making this happen. I think that we need to be involved in the process if we are going to make it happen. So we'll work with the legislative delegation and doing whatever we need to do to move the process forward.
Statewide,
It would have to be statewide, either through a state law or through, like it's noted in here, through possible referendum on the Constitution. And that's the process we kind of go through, see what needs to be done and push to make that happen. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Next item, motion to approve and sign the resolution regarding use of funds for the Jackson County Park and the Solid Waste Department. Again, this was brought to us at the previous work session. Any questions or comments before we proceed on this?
Could we separate those and vote on them separately instead of voting them as solid waste and
If we take the resolution as Part A and Part B, would that work, Mr. Porter?
It would.
Okay, and we can separate them, okay. So, we'll do that, we'll entertain first a motion for Part A, which is the solid waste portion, a motion to approve the resolution requesting, as noted, to help recoup funds over the years, as well as use the excess revenues that would be available. So entertain a motion to approve A before further discussion.
So moved.
Motion, we have a second? Okay. Discussion on this item?
This is just like we clarified in the previous.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second for Part A, which is the solid waste portion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. 3-1, that motion carries. The second Part B, regarding the Parks Department. Do we have any comments on that before we proceed? Do we have a motion to proceed with Part B?
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any information as to when those things will happen?
Would you clarify for everyone too, the FEMA money that the general fund had to use during the tornadoes, and that's why how this thing got started?
That there are quite a few dollars that have been spent out of the general fund or out of even the capital improvement fund, both mostly out of the general fund to cover park projects in the past. So again, this would push those, we would try to, at least while we're here, my hope would be to manage that, and for any improvement funds that we did outside of the parks revenue, that we would do that from 116, as opposed to pushing that to the general fund. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second for Part B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. If we can separate those two, I guess, as we need to. Okay. Next item's a motion to, or clarify the sick leave policy. This was brought to us last week. As noted, we do need to ensure that the policy states that when you retire, you're paid to a maximum of 600 hours. So this is just to clarify that, even though we increased the total number of hours that an employee can accrue, that's for the retirement benefit. They will still only receive up 50% up to the 600 hours as previously, as the previous policy stated. So this is that clarification. Before further discussion, I have a motion to approve this change or clarification.
Make a motion.
Motion, with a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion on this. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item's approval and award of the phone bid. I believe that you had all received the numbers on this last week. The committee has a recommendation tonight. The recommendation would be to approve the lowest bidder, which was Systems N. The bid was just under $140,000. The second page that you have is actually a monthly service cost that we would need approved with this, but it's approved separately. It was alternate in the bid package. Even so, if we approve the bid tonight with Systems N, as well as this monthly service cost, it would save the county between $8,000 and $12,000 a year. Possibility for even more savings. The reason we've got that range right now is because there's still, once we get the process in place, if there's some things we can actually scale back on as far as costs go, we will do that, but we need to get it in place first. So on a low end, we're looking at saving $8,000 a year, but I think that will increase once we get into the process. So, any discussion on this before? I don't think we had much discussion last week. Any further discussion on this before we proceed?
And this amount be paid out of the capital improvement fund, which does not affect the general fund?
Correct. It will be paid out of Fund 116, which is another important point. Again, that can only be used for capital improvements. So this will be paid out of Fund 116. The savings would affect the general fund, however, so that will be a good saving for the general fund towards the issue that we've got. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Okay. Next item is regarding another appointment to the Mountain Lake Behavioral Health Care Board. We have had that was we had a request from David Kenwer to serve on this board. So at this time, we have two positions left on this board. Mr. Kenwer has requested to be on, to serve on this board, so we'll entertain a motion to approve that or to make that nomination and move forward with that appointment. Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? This appointment will end in, let me get this right, I think this is 2017 will be the end of this particular one. Any other questions or comments? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Congratulations, Mr. Kenny. Next item, motion regarding the Jackson County Park Sewer Project. You have in your packets a list of the information on the bidders and the bids that were received. After reviewing the bids, there are 2 bids that did not meet specifications, leaving only 1 qualified bidder. It would be the recommendation of the committee to reject the bids altogether and negotiate with the only qualified bidder. We believe that we can get the rate lowered a little bit in working with them and possibly doing a few things ourselves that would save some dollars on this project. So before we move forward, any discussion, questions or comments on this? Like I said, the recommendation would be to reject the bids and then negotiate with the only qualified bidder on a final project price. Any other questions or comments? Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Now, I would also mention this, again, another project that is an investment. Hope to see dollars coming off this in the future, so I think this is a good thing to do as far as looking for the future of the county. Okay, that concludes the items on our agenda, so we will move on to our report. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Very good.